Hi, everyone. Before I head out, I wanted to make one more video. Recently, some sad news came to my desk, and I was thinking what was the best way to pay tribute. From time to time, people die, Charlie Daniels and others, and I make videos because these people, in some way, impacted or touched my life, and I just, for better or for worse, like to pay homage to them. If the more public the figure, the more controversial it is. But this one was interesting because it's a person who was in our community, the Cardano community, Vasil Dabov. Vasil was a very unique man. He was in his 60s when I met him, and he lived a long, rich life. He was from Bulgaria, and he studied mathematics, and he had a keen interest in algebra and analysis and other areas. And he was an incredibly brilliant man. And then somewhere along the way, he developed almost a druid-like passion for nature. And he decided to go on a personal mission to plant thousands of trees, ginkgo biloba trees, sequoias, all kinds of things. And over his life, planted over 10,000 trees. He was a fairly unique person and had a very unique perspective on humanity. And he heard my AMAs years ago and said, "Wow, this Cardano community is something truly special." So he just started showing up at our events, and eventually we ran into each other at places like Plutus Fest in Edinburgh back in, I think it was 2019 and or 2018, and then eventually at the IOHK summit that we did in Miami back in 2019. And I just enjoyed talking to him so much that I decided that for the second year anniversary of Cardano, that I'd go to Bulgaria and actually spend some time with Vasil and plant some trees. So in September of I think it was 2019, the second anniversary, we actually flew out to Plovdiv uh, and went to the agricultural university there and went ahead and planted a bunch of ginkgo biloba trees and I think a sequoia tree with Vasil and his family and a lot of friends there. It was a great event and we really enjoyed it. And we just had a chance to talk a lot. Now, one of the cool things is that Vasil always would give me a book recommendation, something he was reading or something that touched him. And there was a particular book that he recommended, The Tree of Knowledge. And I have a copy of it right here. And it's kind of a book on cognition and the human experience and how humans relate and understand each other. And I think this is probably one of the most complete representations of his life philosophy. And there's a lovely book by the same authors called The Embodied Mind, Cognitive Science and the Human Experience. And I highly recommend it. But I think he represented truly the best of our community, and it was always helpful, always curious, always willing to relate and talk to people. And he carried his heart on his sleeve, and he just tell you how he thought the world ought to be, and shared a lot of love and peace with people. And he spent quite a bit of time really connected to the natural world and planted so many trees and reminded us of an old Greek proverb, which says, "Great societies are built when old men plant trees whose shade they shall never know." The trees we planted in Plovdiv, they're very young, and it'll take decades for them to become big trees. And the shade that they cast, Vasil will not enjoy. But because he planted them with us, he will. And I think it is a fitting tribute to the man that he was. So I thought a lot about what would be a good way to honor someone who was so good to us as a community and immortalize a philosophy that ought to be remembered in a certain respect, especially because it's so deeply connected to the philosophy of Cardano, this idea of planting seeds for the future and looking for the long term and giving back. And so, as many of you know, we have Hard Fork events, Hard Fork Combinator events. And next year we are planning three of them, one in February, one in June, and one in October, September timeframe. And those three Hard Fork Combinator events are usually named after great computer scientists or philosophers people who are intimately involved in the history of academia or society, and somehow interconnected to eras. So, for example, we just crossed the Alonzo hard fork here in September. And that hard fork was named after Alonzo Church, a very prominent computer scientist who invented lambda calculus, which is the foundation for Haskell. The next hard fork in February is going to be the Babbage hard fork after Charles Babbage, who was a pioneer in computer science, basically the first computer builder and a mentor to Ada Lovelace. So I think it would be very fitting to honor one of our own community members who gave so much to us and has now passed on, and name the June hard fork after Vasil Dabov. So what we're going to do is look through a bunch of pictures of him and create some artwork in the spirit of the artwork that we created for Basho and Voltaire and Gauguin, and immortalize that and go ahead and issue some artwork on the chain and name the June hard fork after him, Dabov hard fork. It's a small tribute, but it is permanent because Cardano will be here forever. And now he gets to be part of the history of Cardano and be immortalized on a hopefully project that will be here for the centuries to come. He didn't get to enjoy the shade that the blockchain will give the world, but he did help plant the seeds for it. He was a good friend. And if you really want to understand how he thought and how he approached the world, I'd highly recommend reading the two books that I just recommended. But more practically, I just recommend buying some seeds of some plant somewhere, maybe an arrow garden, a little pod, or maybe actually a tree, and taking the time to plant one and take care of one and watch it grow. There's a lot you can learn from that. So farewell, my friend. You were a good one to all of us, and you will be missed. And because of the technology we've built, forever remembered. Cheers.